Hi, I'm Raffaele, Vice President of AI and Machine Learning Engineering at Workday. Today's Masterclass lesson is all about decoding large language models and their application in the enterprise. In this lesson, you'll learn about the foundational building blocks necessary for the successful implementation of artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about the evolution of large language models, commonly known as LLMs. We're going to cover some of the best practices for enterprise machine learning development. And we're going to talk about the importance of data security considerations and being transparent about how we use data in AI-driven solutions. So when we think about the foundational building blocks for enterprise AI, the number one thing to think about is data. There's a couple of different places to look for data, commonly used resources like public internet data. And then when we think about the enterprise, your specific data that you trust us when you let us build machine learning features for you, one of our customers. Enterprise data is unique because it represents how you and your organization run. It's not shared with anybody else, and it contains the critical pieces of information needed to develop effective machine learning solutions that are tailored specifically to you. Additionally, when you're shipping machine learning features, you need to think about the infrastructure required to actually be able to do that. So we think about how do we move data? How do we let you know what data is being used, what features are being developed with it, and let you decide what data you do want to share and when you need to stop sharing that. Workday's machine learning platform lets us be able to display exactly what data we're using and lets you have programmatic control out of opting out of that. So all of your models and all of your data are purged when you change your mind about what machine learning features you actually want to use. With the advent of large language models, it also puts interesting pressure on our infrastructure needs. I'm sure everybody here has heard about the demand for GPUs. GPUs are really effective at processing large language models and deep neural networks because of their ability to parallelize. That means they're able to do a large number of computations at the same time. And with the demand of artificial intelligence growing, it makes it particularly complex to be able to ship and deliver machine learning features at scale. Workday's platform runs all over the world. That means we're able to deliver machine learning features in region without having to centralize and move vast amounts of data into one place. That makes it faster to deliver features, it makes it more secure, and helps us deliver on our commitment of data minimization, moving the least amount of data necessary to deliver the best possible results to you. As we continue to see this space evolve, what we're likely to see is development in new ways to process large workloads that leverage artificial intelligence. We work with hyperscalers like AWS and GCP who are bringing new types of silicon to the market. And what we're going to expect to see is a rapid development in the ability to process more information faster in a more cost-effective manner. Large language models aren't a new technology. Neural networks have been around since the 1960s, and what we've seen is a couple of key things converging to really drive mass improvement in the quality of recommendations or text generation that we see from these large language models. A couple of key things happened. One is the sheer size of neural networks that started in the 10 million parameter range to 100 million, and now what we see in the hundreds of billions of parameter range. Second is the development of new architecture. From LSTM now to the transformer architecture, the introduction of topics like self-attention and multi-head self-attention, and finally, an ease of access to much stronger compute. That means developers are able to spin up large compute clusters and take advantage of them and really commoditize access to the ability to deliver large language models and build net new solutions. This is likely the fastest I've ever seen the open source community move. What we've seen is that there's not a large moat in the technology itself, and instead it's data that's driving the divide. That's why when we think about enterprise machine learning, the data that you and your organization bring is extremely valuable. And owning your own destiny in artificial intelligence and having that vertical integration that Workday brings is a tremendous asset. What we've seen large language models really excel at, in particular in the last couple of years, is their ability to generalize into lots of different domains. Whether it's generating recipes or cooking instructions, large language models seem to have expertise in everything. We've also seen some of the downsides in large language models, where they're able to confidently, incorrectly answer questions. When we think about enterprise AI, that's one of the stumbling blocks and one of the challenges that we work hard to overcome. Determinism, meaning getting the same answer every single time you ask that question, is very important in the enterprise. When you ask things like, what was my last paycheck? Or what's our company's PTO policy? We need to make sure that those answers are consistent and correct, regardless of whether you're in the United States or somewhere in Europe, whether you've been at Workday or your organization for a month or whether you've been there for 5 years. Large language models struggle with determinism because they are probabilistic in nature. That means that they're using mathematical probability to determine the next token or the next word that's being outputted simply based on the previous text input. At Workday, we take a hybrid approach. That means we use partners to be able to bring in their best of breed models, partnerships like GCP and AWS, and then we also build our own large language models. That's important because it lets us use your data specifically for your features. By building our own large language models, we're able to do a couple of key things. One is keep your data in-house. Second is build smaller, more domain-specific models that are able to capture the nuance of your organization. A good example is something like job descriptions. A model that we build internally is able to capture the nuance and tone of how you write your job descriptions, the syntax and structure of your job description, and it's also able to stay up to date as your job descriptions tend to update. That means we're also able to capture proprietary technology or terminology that you don't want in the public domain. Those models are all trained specifically on your information or your private information and deliver generative results specific to you. Those models are able to be retrained on a regular basis, something that's challenging with very large hyper-parameterized models. Training those models can take weeks or months and cost tens of millions of dollars and are intended to do many use cases at once. Workday's domain-specific models are intended to solve your problem specifically with your data. There's a number of different dimensions to consider when you're evaluating your investment in artificial intelligence. One of the most common ones is time savings. Being able to not start from a blank page when you're writing job descriptions or KB articles, artificial intelligence can generate huge time savings. You can translate those into cost savings of running your business, being able to translate that into things like case deflection, saving your HR department time, being able to put more information from your experts' hands in the hands of your actual users on a daily basis. We talked a little bit about the importance of data privacy when considering artificial intelligence, so let's dive into that. Traditionally, when thinking about data privacy, there's a number of tools available to you. Access control, role-based access control, even things like tenant encryption. But when we're looking at artificial intelligence, that becomes particularly challenging. Today, there's no technological guaranteed ability to provide security on data that's been exposed to a model. So at Workday, we do a couple of things. One is we train much smaller domain-specific models like we talked about. That means we're able to use less data to train a model specifically for you. And then we apply techniques like RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation, which let us bring in context data right at inference time that also invokes your security model. That means only the right people are seeing the right information. It also helps us with determinism. Think about questions like, what's my company's maternity leave policy? The answer to that question might vary based off of your time and role, which region around the world you're in, and by being able to bring in the right information that's either in Workday or accessible to Workday right at inference time gives us the right context at the right time to deliver the right answer on a repeatable basis. And repeatability is one of the foundational components of enterprise AI that's different than what you might find in a consumer application where creativity is actually rewarded. Other techniques that we use at Workday to help ground those models are things like chain of thought or chain of reasoning, being able to use agents, which is mixing different language models and different machine learning techniques to interact with deterministic systems. An example of that might be, what's my PTO policy? And actually being able to call out to an API that interacts with Workday and gives you a 100% guaranteed answer, and then translates that back into natural language. It gives you a natural way to interact with Workday's core platform that provides a unified data store across your entire suite. The way large language models work today is that they are autoregressive in nature. What that means is that they use the prior input to derive the subsequent output. An example of that might be, the sky is, and by using all of the training data available, the most likely outcome is blue. Obviously, when we're thinking about the enterprise, the ability to be able to generate that same response on a repeatable basis is critical for success. When thinking about artificial intelligence in the consumer space versus the enterprise space, there's a couple of key differences. One is the vast amount of information that's more likely to be accessible at a consumer level organization. At the enterprise level, we're talking about the data that runs your business, which is highly sensitive. Additionally, that data is very differentiated. That means that the data that runs an organization that does subscription billing versus one that is a manufacturing company is entirely different between the two. Machine learning usually does not generalize well across all of those. So when we think about solutions that use machine learning, we're often thinking about what's the right solution or the right type of model or the right data to look at to actually produce the best possible result. At Workday, we've built our machine learning platform from the ground up. That means it's tied directly into this unified data store. As a new organization comes online, we're able to leverage their information. It comes into our machine learning development environment. It runs through our data engineering pipelines, which produce models, kick off all of the evaluation that happens to see if the accuracy of that model crosses a threshold, and then actually pushes that to production, which means replicating those models out to different environments to be able to serve results to you. One of the interesting things about Workday's machine learning platform is that it's able to process and retrain models on a regular basis. That can happen daily, weekly, monthly, and varies widely by feature. That lets our models stay up to date with the most current information about you. It's able to capture new topics or new trends in your organizations before you even spot them. So let's dive into what we see in the market from these large language models. I'm sure everybody here has heard about ChatGPT, which really took over the world by storm when it was announced a couple of years ago. What that did, it was make large language models accessible to the consumer. That model, hundreds of billions of parameters, is very good at a lot of different things. One of the challenges with that approach is that those models are trained relatively infrequently and won't be able to access really private information that might reside in your enterprise. Now, even at Workday, we can't run copies of models that large for every single customer. So we apply a couple of techniques that we're going to talk about. The first technique that we're going to talk about is parameter efficient fine-tuning, or PEFT. And what that does is let us train much smaller performant models that are designed to do a couple of different things. One is they capture the nuance of your organization. They're also able to capture a specific type of output that we might be looking for, a job description, a job profile, a help article. And so what we do is train hundreds or even thousands of these lightweight models. And then we combine them in different ways. So we might have a model specific to you and combine that with a model that's designed to output text in a specific format. By putting that together and then taking advantage of a large foundational model, which has mastery of the language, you're actually able to get very accurate results with a much smaller, more performant model that provides that data privacy and data security that we talked about, while maintaining costs and the ability to serve that at scale around the world. The other technique that we commonly use is model distillation. And what model distillation is when we take a large model, we run that in production for a period of time, and we're able to capture the inputs and outputs of that model and use that to train a smaller model. What that does for us is let us ship features faster using that larger model, albeit at a higher cost and higher latency, but then use that data to train a smaller, higher performance model. The benefit is you get features faster, earlier, and then we're able to ship and build more features by delivering components that use those smaller, higher efficiency models. When you think about data security using artificial intelligence, it's really important to keep a couple of core tenets in mind. Number one is who is accessing your data? Where is it going? What are they doing with it? What are the rights that they have with that data versus what you have? And making sure that you've got complete visibility into how your data is being handled. Enterprise security is complex. You have users in different regions, you've got things like effective dates, and being able to manage that in a large language model is essentially impossible. And so what we want to be able to do is provide different techniques to layer in security throughout the development process. Security isn't a point in time. It's something that we think about throughout the entire development cycle. We think about security when we're selecting which data to use, when we're moving data, when we're training and evaluating models, when we're running them in production. And the ability to do that and be able to confidently and transparently tell our customers, this is what we're using your data for and what data we're actually using, is one of the core tenets in all of our development. Like we were talking about earlier, applying security to the actual weights or the neural network that's being trained isn't something that's technologically feasible today. So what Workday does is rely heavily on that vertical integration of our development platform. When we use models that we train internally, we're able to have full control over what data is being used, and then combine techniques that we were talking about previously. Techniques like retrieval augmented generation, model distillation, parameter efficient fine-tuning, and it's that combination of techniques that let us deliver solutions to our customers in a performant, data security-minded approach. Another important aspect of our platform is the ability to run that in different regions. We talked a little bit about data minimization, moving the least amount of data or using the least amount of data to get the best possible result. By running our development environments in the United States and in Europe and our inference environments in other regions around the world, we're able to deliver on that commitment to our customers to move less data and deliver great quality results at the same time. One of the great parts of Workday's unified platform is the ability to have data lineage. Data lineage is the origin of where that data came from. So when we look at a model, what data was used to train it, when was that data last extracted? And the great benefit of Workday's platform is that we don't just have the current state of the data, but the state at which that data resided in every step of the transaction. That means we are able to track transactions in time, and all of that information is incredibly valuable when you're delivering custom, tailor-made artificial intelligence solutions at the enterprise level. That's one of the key differences when we talk about consumer AI and enterprise AI. The ability to access your people and finance data and have its transactional history available to our machine learning algorithms is able to differentiate the quality and repeatability of the results you get from our inference. Workday puts data transparency in the hands of our users. That means customers can see exactly what data was being used and have programmatic control over opting out of that. And when users opt out of that, all of their data is purged from our development environment, the models are purged, and users don't have to rely on Workday engineers to actually go in and remove their data. Everything is handled automatically for them right when they check the box. At Workday, we're using artificial intelligence to help you make better decisions faster with the right information at your hands. When you select a partner, you should know how they're handling your data and how they're delivering artificial intelligence-based solutions to you. So, as we wrap up our discussion, let's recap some of the key takeaways. Understanding the platform and infrastructure components necessary for AI and ML lays the groundwork for successful implementation. Exploring the origins of large language models and their adaptation to business contexts provides valuable insights into their capabilities and their limitations. Differentiating machine learning development in enterprise highlights the importance of accountability, repeatability, and maintaining that vertical integration. Choosing the appropriate model size and fine-tuning techniques ensures cost-effectiveness, performance, and meets business objectives while controlling operational costs. And finally, prioritizing security and data transparency, including understanding data lineage, are essential for maintaining trust and compliance within the enterprise. As we continue to navigate the ever-changing landscape of artificial intelligence and machine learning, it's crucial to remain agile, innovative, and mindful of the ethical implications surrounding data usage and model development. I look forward to seeing how we can leverage these insights to drive meaningful change in our organizations.